Well, hello everybody. This is Marco Ciappelli. I am flying solo today for the pre-event coverage of RSA Conference. We usually do it with Sean, Martin, and myself, but we are doing so many amazing podcast episodes even before getting to RSA Conference that we're giving a break to each other. So he take care of some, I take care of some others. And this one, I decided to take this because it's very much related to society and technology. And for those of you that have been following me, my background is political science. So we're actually talking about the connection today between, let's say politicians and cybersecurity and other things going around that. And to do these, of course, I'm not alone. I'm actually have Madison Horn. She's a congressional nominee. And she's going to be at RSA Conference as well. Her background is in cybersecurity, and she's running for Congress. So we're going to talk about a lot of fun stuff. And I want to welcome you to this show, Madison.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. Sorry you're flying solo, but agree, only fun topics today.
Yeah. This is all
thank
for
you for having me. No one else. Sorry, audience.
Yeah. No, it's with you. It's with you. So, introduce yourself, please, for our audience, and then we'll dive into some fun conversation.
Sure. So appreciate just the time in this space here. As you mentioned, I'm running for Congress. I'm actually running for Congress in the great state of Oklahoma, which might be a bit of a plot twist for some. But I've spent the past 15 years working in cybersecurity across the United States, from red teaming to incident response to leading a team at Siemens Energy, always focused within the critical infrastructure space. That's kind of, I would say, the industry that pulls at my heartstrings more than any other. And so I've been in the political realm for the past 2.5 years. I initially ran for the United States Senate in preparation for this race, and excited to be at RSA and to continue to absorb and learn from the community.
Well, that's great. I have to say that it's now 5 years ago, maybe, that I was at DEF CON in Las Vegas, what they call Summer Hacker Camp. And there was an entire group of politicians walking through in a place where usually you don't see legislators or politicians.
Sure.
And that was the day that we really realized that this connection needs to be done. Now, I don't know how far we've gone since that day. I know there is CISA, there is a lot of things that are involving the government, but I want to hear your perspective, because I know you're actually running with cybersecurity flag in your hand. So what made you decide to do that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. And I love Black Hat. I wish I was actually taking this in my campaign office, but it was a mess. And we had a lot of volunteers there today. But I have all of my DEF CON badges and a couple of challenge coins just from all the different ICS villages and the policy hacking village, which was the first that came to DEF CON last year. So I love seeing the intersection of both policy and, obviously CISA has done an amazing job. But that wasn't your question. Why did I make the decision to run for office? To be frank, incredibly frustrated at the fact that, there are individuals that are leading major policy changes that really are kind of clueless about the basic way that technology works, whether that be data analytics or data correlations or, how platforms make money. I think, a famous line from Congress at this point was, when they were asking Mark Zuckerberg, like, how do you make money? And he was like, ads, digital ads. And so it's just beyond And so when we start talking about real problems and challenges, whether that be online data privacy, protecting kids from mental health challenges, or we talk about the impending threat from China to our critical infrastructure, there's really just an entirely lack of understanding of the potential impact, risk, and what does that mean? How do we need to move policy forward? How do we need to collaborate with the public and private sector? And right now, I just see a lot of demonizing of the public sector or the private sector. And, it's just not the way forward for us as a country. And so, as we started seeing, not to get political, like as far as like parties go, but as we started seeing this wave of the lack of true leaders, I think being in office, and what I mean by that is people who really understand the purpose of leadership, and to me that is service and putting people back at the center, then it was just a call to action for me. I'm from a super small town, grew up really poor, and so it just taught me so many things in the way that I want to present myself as a leader.
That's really cool. And I guess a passion for technology. I'm assuming that kind of drive you to do this career, and then realizing that something needs to be done. And I have to say, it's very hard to connect the dots sometimes between how fast technology is going. Mm-hmm. Generative AI a year and a half ago, we probably wouldn't even talk about it.
Sure.
And how we are lacking, I think, a plan in Congress and legislative level in general. I follow Europe, being from Europe originally myself. The AI Act, the GDPR, everything seems to be coming from there first, and then eventually we got the California Privacy Act and other things. So, but it seems like it's always an afterthought. So is that your vision to make it at the core of initiatives way more than what it is now?
Absolutely. And, you talk about, different legislation starting in Europe. And I think it's because we're just very much free thinkers. Americans are known to be very independent. We don't want government intervention. And so I think that keeps us from actually taking action in ways that the market needs to be tamed in some ways. Someone's going to hate that line. But what I mean by is, you talk about emerging technology and it seems that we're always behind. And it's because there is a general lack of awareness of the current state of where technology is today and what it's capable of doing. When, ChatGPT came out, then everyone's like, oh my God, AI. And then I would say folks in the sector or just in the tech field in general have always said, well, we've had AI for a while. It's just data analytics and data correlations, and now it's publicly available for consumption. And so it's just a entirely different ball game. And so when you ask about my grand plan, I haven't laid out every single piece of policy. I think it's got to be done based on priority. To me, when I think about the intersection of policy and tech policy, and it initially goes to national security. It goes to economic security, especially in my state that I live in. That's one of the poorest states in the country. And we have bills being passed today where, we're no longer going to fund programs that allow for individuals to have low cost internet. And, what is this, to the 1900s, there was a study done that if 10% more of the individuals living in my state, the economic impact of that would be $19 billion. It would create something like 275,000 jobs. And so what are we doing across the country to ensure just basic things like internet? And I think that those things are pushed aside because it's not electricity, it's not food, it's not water. And so it's seen to be a privilege to have basic things like internet. And so if we can't solve these little things, then how can we have conversations around legacy technology in the critical infrastructure space and how susceptible that is to China, or maybe why we shouldn't have, devices made from foreign countries put into our critical infrastructure? We can't have these bigger conversations. And so I think that's why we have to have individuals in leadership roles that actually understand the fundamentals.
Yeah, I agree with you. So one of the things that I often bring to the conversation is the fact of how every company now is a technology company. I mean, either
Yeah.
you want it or not. And you mentioned the need for something like that, and especially in creating new jobs. So let talk a little bit about that, like technology being so pervasive that you just simply can't ignore it.
Yeah. Well, it's not just that, but what the tech industry does is really creates economic opportunity and stability. Forgive me, I'm always going to go back to Oklahoma. It's not because I'm trying to put a plug here, but it's just a really, really good example. We are heavily oil and gas. 25% of our industry in Oklahoma is the oil and gas market. And, obviously the edges of that technology are the service companies and the vendors, but the idea is that we're going to capture more of the manufacturing market, which I think is a great idea. But how many jobs is that actually going to create when we have AI and we also have automation coming in? And so what we're talking about, maybe 1,000 jobs. And so I think when you look at states like Oklahoma and what the tech industry can do, what remote work opportunities can do, then I think it's critical for us to think differently. And that's all the way from workforce development opportunities, how you can leverage vocational programs. It's a number of things of what the tech industry can do for a state economy.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about next week, because this
Sure.
one is going to be published definitely before the beginning of RSA Conference.
Mhm.
So maybe people are going to look at this right now, and we are actually at RSA Conference. So
Sure.
how important and why did you decide? I don't think you're speaking there this year or anything like that, but you decided I'm going to be at RSA Conference, which for people who are
Yeah.
not familiar, it is the biggest, if not one of the biggest conference for cybersecurity in the world. So what are you expecting from that?
Sure. Yeah. Well, the first question of the why versus what am I expecting? So the why, I mean, we've already recognized here, right? Technology moves so quickly, and I haven't been a hands-on practitioner. I haven't worked in the cybersecurity space. I was a CEO of a cybersecurity company here in Oklahoma for the year in between my campaigns. But realistically, I've been out of the space. And so, opportunities like RSA to me keep me fresh. I'm interacting with individuals who are, either developing or investing in cutting edge technologies. They're looking for opportunity to place new jobs. They're looking for ripe markets. And so I think it's an opportunity for me to not just talk about like my candidacy and what I'm wanting to do and advocate for the cybersecurity community, but it also keeps me informed and up to date. So then I don't become the individuals who's like, how do I work my email? Can I PDF this? And so it's critical for me. And I also, I want the support of my industry. The day that I do get elected, I'm not going to be, it's going to be tough in the current climate. Then red or blue, it doesn't matter. Either party can't get anything done. But because of the fact that I will be the only person with a cybersecurity background, to me, it'll actually allow me to pull a lot of walls down and just offer, an area of expertise, whether that be in national security and foreign policy conversations, or that be on the topic of critical infrastructure or workforce dev or education, then I can purely just be a subject matter expert and hopefully just find solutions for some of the major problems. So that's why I'm attending. That's why I think it's so valuable. And hopefully just to ensure that people know that they have an ally.
And are you going to some keynotes? Did you have an action plan there?
Sure.
Maybe some panels that you want to be present? I mean, we have a lot of conversation, and every single aspect you're touching, it's happening there, right? So there is going to be something about politics, something about privacy and ethics, of course, a lot about practitioners that, they know way more than what I know. But what I care is what you care. It's like, how is this going to affect me as a citizen, me as a person, me as a career, me as a, everything.
Yeah.
And
Well, I'm getting so many questions around the way that I believe that AI is going to impact the workforce and job elimination, job creation. And I have some initial thoughts, but I really would love to have these conversations with individuals who are way smarter than me, and just to hear what they have to say, to learn from historic moments in history when we have seen the evolution of technology, the way that we're seeing it adopted. I think AI is going to be one of the first technologies that we are pushing. I don't want to say we, but that we're seeing major legislation being attempted to regulate this space. Now, we can agree and disagree, but I really want to know what folks in the space see as good, bads, and ugly of potential regulation, what that would look like if we go down that path. My week is a bit chaotic. The 4 days that I'm there, I'm going to events that are focused in the national security space, going to a couple of obviously private sectors into things that are just, CISOs across industry, whether that be banking or media or, obviously telecom space, and just, again, want to kind of learn some pain points. I know that there was a lot of frustration post some of the SolarWinds decisions and, what the new CISO role may look like, the liability there. So just staying curious, staying hungry, obviously catching up with some amazing friends and, community leaders.
If there is something that I love in what you say is be surrounded by smart people. I always feel that if it never happened, but if I ever feel like the smartest guy in the room, I'm probably in the wrong room.
And how boring! No offense to you. I'm sure we can have a great time.
It'd be horrible. You wanna learn, and that's one of the things. I mean, when I sit down with someone, either doing a podcast from my office or there in Broadcast Alley, that's the thing. I learn. Everything I know is from conversation with smart people, and I'm definitely learning something from you as well. You said at the beginning that you've been focusing in your career on the infrastructure, and I think that definitely one of the hot topic in cybersecurity nowadays. So a little bit of a vision there. I mean, I have conversations sometimes that come out to the fact that we have maybe in this country infrastructure that could be a little bit newer, maybe thought from a little bit more of supervision from the top. And again, politics, which bring me not only to talk about that, but also the vision of, do we really need to make decision based on a party? Or can we make decision based on what really matters for the citizen? So go for it.
Yeah, your last question just it got me fired up. So
I planned it.
So we're gonna put that aside for 30 seconds. My comms team is always like, Madison, you answer every single question. I'm like, isn't that what I'm supposed to do? So talking about vision for the critical infrastructure space, this is an industry that has understood the potential risk from our foreign adversaries for a very, very long time. I've been in this space for 15 years. Again, I was an executive at Siemens Energy, and I chose to work in this space because I truly felt that I was serving something that was much better than, or much bigger than me, and also representing an industry that is highly misunderstood. When you talk about the electric industry, the utilities industry, there's nothing sexy about it. But, can you imagine if an entire city doesn't have running water or electricity? It's going to create chaos. Your banking system's not going to work. You're going to have hospitals that aren't going to work. And so when you talk about the impeding threat across the sector, then I think that we have to, us as practitioners within the cybersecurity space have to understand that we're trying to solve a problem and not just sell a product. And so I really want to be a part of the industry conversations and how we're building regulation. I love the CISA cyber trust mark, and where that is actually saying that these devices pass a certain set of standards, that they can be appropriately managed. They can be, I'm getting in the weeds here, but my point being is there are ways for collaboration between the public and private sector to solve really small problems that can have really huge impact. And there's going to have to be an investment, in my mind, from the US government to modernize our critical infrastructure rapidly, especially as we're staring down the barrel of potential war with China, and obviously already threats from Russia, as we saw 2 weeks ago, a hacktivist group or a hacking group state that they did execute the attack against a US water system. And so what does that look like? What does retaliation look like? How do you hold them accountable? None of that is defined right now. And so I want to be a part of this new generation of leadership that is going to be able to operate and hold adversaries accountable. And that may sound very fear-mongering, but it's the wild, wild west. It is absolutely the wild, wild west. And throughout this entire conversation, pulling on your intentional plug to make me fired up, I would say majority of Americans don't. Can I curse on this podcast? They don't give a damn about party. No one ever is like, hey, there's a really big problem here. Wait 1 second. Are you a Democrat or a Republican? Right? When have you ever heard that in a conversation with your neighbors, your friends, a boardroom? It's never. It's, do I have the resources that I need? People, money, tools, right? Mm-hmm. Those are the three things you're looking for. It's never party. And we've gotten to a point in the political climate where it only matters the party that you're serving. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's disgusting. I think that it is now the rot within the American political system is that we've lost any type of courage in our elected officials to take a stand on anything. And I think that it is long-term, it's incredibly detrimental to the economic security of America, the ability for us to continue to stay a world power, you name it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that the industry, the cybersecurity industry in general, is used to deal with people that don't give a damn. Because until
Thank you for cursing with me.
I'm supporting you with that. Because I know until it happened to you, it's very human. You don't worry about it. Why two-factor authentication? Why this? Why that? And then one day it gets really close, and they're like, "Yep, okay, now I know what they were talking about." So to go to this kind of event, I feel like we always look a little bit into the future, and just to make a plug for. My friends at RSA Conference organizer, the theme this year is the art of possible, which is very, very inspiring theme. And I think that it will be really good for you to go out there. I hope you find the conversation that you're looking for. And hopefully I will see you around. Maybe we'll just wave because I'm going to be running and you're going to be running. But I am very, very happy that you found the time. I know you're busy to stop by the show, and it was a very, very exciting conversation. I think I'll make people think, which ultimately is what I like.
I hope so. I know it was all very, it was all surface level in a quick conversation, but I hope that it provides some value and just kind of some thought processes on, again, I think the need for us to have individuals within our space help translating, right? The biggest, I think, problem within our industry is being able to translate what we're trying to accomplish and the why. And so, I hope it just provides a lot of thought and opportunity for people to reach out and have bigger conversations.
Absolutely. And there will be notes in the conversation notes, in the podcast notes, in YouTube, if you're watching on YouTube, to get in touch with you, to go on your website and ask you more questions if they want to. For everybody else listening, stay tuned. If you can make it to RSA Conference, great. I know not everybody is going to be able to go there. So follow us with our coverage, and we'll try to share the journey with all of you. Thank you again, Madison. It's been an honor.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course.